The series begins with a highly calculated bank robbery. After the masked criminal secures the money he wants, he approaches one of the female bank tellers and whispers something incredibly quietly into her ear. Whatever he says makes her entire face freeze in absolute terror. Before she can even utter a single word in response, he shoots her point blank in the head, ending her life instantly. Later that exact same night, we meet Detective Harry, who is drinking heavily at a local bar. Suddenly, he gets an urgent phone call informing him that the police have located the getaway car of the bank robber. Without a second thought, Harry rushes out and jumps into his car with his partner, Lars, hoping to catch the criminal. But unfortunately, Harry is driving under the heavy influence of alcohol. He makes a fatal steering error, and the car flips over violently. The crash is devastating. 5 years pass. We see Harry, still profoundly haunted by the accident he caused, unable to move past the guilt. He sits alone in his office, obsessively rewatching the security footage of that same bank heist, desperately hoping to find a new clue to identify the killer. We learn from the footage that when the criminal entered, his face was completely covered. He fired a warning shot into the ceiling to freeze everyone in place. Then, he sprinted toward one specific female teller, pressed his gun to her head, and handed her a note detailing his demands. The teller, absolutely terrified and trembling, read the note aloud, demanding the bank manager enter the vault, fill a bag with all the cash, and return in exactly 30 seconds. To escalate the tension, the criminal set a visible timer on his phone, counting down precisely 30 seconds. Despite everyone's paralyzing fear, the manager managed to keep his composure, stuffed the money into the bag, and threw it to the robber. But tragically, he was exactly 6 seconds late. Because of those 6 extra seconds, the criminal instantly leaned in, whispered something to the teller, shot her in the head without hesitation, grabbed the bag, and fled. Watching the tape, Harry pays close attention to the teller's facial reaction. He is deeply puzzled. What could the killer have possibly whispered in that split second to evoke such a profound look of personal shock and horror? Before he can piece it together, his boss enters his office and warns him, "What you're doing is only hurting yourself. This case was closed 5 years ago. Let it go." But Harry completely ignores the advice. He goes to his colleague, Officer Ellen, and asks her to find a behavioral analysis expert to read the teller's facial expression. She informs him that a new expert has just arrived who might be able to help. The precinct chief is annoyed by this because he had explicitly ordered that he would personally welcome the new expert to supervise her work. Harry, whose social skills are practically non-existent and who constantly ruins things with his blunt honesty, walks in to welcome the expert himself. She introduces herself as Beate, noting she is Swedish. Harry barely acknowledges her, shakes her hand dismissively, and walks out. Later, the three of them, Harry, Ellen, and Beate, gather in the office to review the bank footage. Harry points out the criminal's weapon. The strange thing is that it's a CZ pistol, an extremely rare firearm in the city of Oslo. The police had practically never heard of it being used until the bank heist. To make matters more interesting, just a few days ago, narcotics officers found the exact same type of weapon on a man named Severin. Severin is a known drug dealer, but the police recently discovered he has also been trafficking weapons for years and previously attempted to rob a bank twice. Ellen asks Harry, "Is this why you suspect Severin might be the killer from the 5-year-old case?" However, when they show Beate the footage, Ellen feels Harry is overthinking the teller's reaction. Ellen suggests the killer simply threatened to shoot her, which naturally caused her face to drop. But this simple explanation doesn't satisfy Harry at all. He is absolutely convinced there is a much deeper, darker secret behind her expression. Frustrated, he leaves the room. By pure chance, he bumps into Detective Tom Waaler stepping out of the elevator. Harry suspiciously asks Waaler, "Why did you take the stairs when there's an elevator?" Waaler simply smiles a fake smile, glares at him out of the corner of his eye, and keeps walking normally. The tension between them is thick. It's obvious they despise each other. Waaler, curious about why Harry is in such a rush, enters the office to interrogate his colleagues. Meanwhile, Harry heads straight to a known drug dealer hangout to track down Severin. By chance, he spots a dealer named Kevin sitting in a car with his girlfriend. Harry approaches the window and asks about Severin. Kevin immediately recognizes Harry as a cop and tries to pull a fast one, quickly starting the car to speed away. But Harry grips the car door tightly, pulls his gun, and yells, "Stop the car right now, or I'll blow your head off." Terrified, Kevin slams on the brakes. Because Kevin abides by the street code and refuses to snitch on his friends to the police, He stays completely silent. But when Harry pulls a wad of cash from his pocket, Kevin's girlfriend weakens at the sight of the money and blurts out, "He's under the bridge at Shaw Square." Harry puts the money back in his pocket because it's illegal for a cop to actually bribe a criminal. He immediately heads to the bridge area to find Severin. But unfortunately, Severin is one step ahead. Severin receives a call from an anonymous person warning him, "Harry is coming to arrest you. Go hide in the forest cabin until you distribute the rest of your stash, and then I'll forge your travel documents so you can flee the country." Meanwhile, Beate sits with Ellen to learn more about Harry, since they'll be working closely together. Ellen explains that Harry is one of the precinct's most brilliant detectives, but sadly, he has no life outside of work. She reveals that after his partner died because of him, Harry spiraled into severe alcoholism, but he eventually got treated and came back stronger than before. Suddenly, Waaler walks over to greet them. Beate looks visibly tense and highly unwelcoming of his presence. Even when Ellen asks if they know each other, Beate curtly replies that he simply supervised her training at the police academy, ending the conversation. Later, Harry visits his therapist and confesses, "I've entered a new relationship, and I'm terrified I'm going to destroy it with my own hands." The doctor laughs at his words because he can see genuine happiness on Harry's face. He reassures him, "You've conquered your addiction. There is nothing that will destroy this relationship except your own insecurities. You just need to love yourself more and forgive yourself for your past mistakes." After the session, Harry visits his girlfriend, Raquel. She is overjoyed to see him, but unfortunately, her young son, Oleg, does not share the sentiment. Oleg is visibly unhappy, refusing even to greet Harry, and walks out of the room, leaving them alone. Back at the precinct, Beate and Ellen are reviewing the security footage from the bridge where Severin sells his drugs. They monitor everyone entering and exiting, hoping to identify any frequent buyers who spend significant time in the area. The strange discovery is that the only person who stayed there for a full 20 minutes is Detective Waaler. He was wearing a cap, covering almost half his face, but Beate recognizes him immediately. Later that day, Ellen and Harry confront Waaler in his office about the photo. Waaler gets incredibly defensive and aggressive. "Are you seriously coming in here to accuse me of something this massive based on a blurry photo with no clear features?" He immediately points the finger at Beate, claiming she orchestrated this accusation because they had a brief romantic fling in the past that ended badly, implying she's just seeking petty revenge. Harry pretends to be convinced by Waaler's story, but it's crystal clear he doesn't buy a single word of it. Meanwhile, Raquel tries to talk to her son, urging him to be more accepting of Harry's presence in their lives. But Oleg flat out rejects the idea, explicitly stating his biggest fear: "Just make sure he never moves in to live with us." Later, Harry drives Ellen to her music practice. During the ride, he opens up about his therapy session. He believes his deep fear of relationships stems from childhood trauma. His mother died when he was young. His first girlfriend attempted suicide in front of him, and eventually died in a car crash. Ellen comforts him, saying, "It's okay, humans are naturally resilient. We accept the disasters we face and try to overcome them to live a normal life." The next day, Severin calls Boris, one of his associates, sending him the location of the forest cabin and asking him to bring half a gram of narcotics. But as soon as Boris realizes Severin is hiding in the woods and has no money to pay, he plays dumb and hangs up. Meanwhile, Raquel goes out with Harry and her son, Oleg, to a climbing club, hoping this family outing will help Oleg loosen up and bond with Harry. She intentionally leaves them alone to talk. Harry notices Oleg is terrified of heights and refuses to jump into the water from a 10-meter diving board, causing the other kids to mock him. Harry tries to relate, telling a story. "When I was young, I froze in fear too. My sister's hair got caught in an elevator door, and I was so terrified by the sight that I couldn't move a muscle to help her." Curiosity gets the better of Oleg, and he asks, "What happened in the end?" Harry finished the story. "She lost a few clumps of hair and got hurt. She healed, but I developed a severe phobia of elevators. So, how about a deal? You conquer your fear and jump, and in return, I will ride an elevator once." Surprisingly, Oleg gets genuinely excited about the idea and agrees to jump. On the other side of town, Ellen receives intel that Severin contacted Boris. She personally arrests Boris to extract Severin's exact location. Once she gets the coordinates, she calls Harry, telling him she's going to the forest cabin to verify Severin's presence. Harry warns her not to act recklessly and to call for backup if he's actually there. Meanwhile, Severin has lost his patience waiting. He calls the anonymous person who told him to hide and threatens, "I want my money, or I'm confessing everything to the police." When Ellen arrives at the forest cabin, she indeed finds Severin there. But the massive shock is that she sees Detective Waaler entering the cabin with a drawn gun. And not only that, she watches in horror as Waaler executes Severin in cold blood. Desperate, she tries calling Harry multiple times, but unfortunately, he is completely distracted cheering Oleg on for his high dive. The good news is that Oleg successfully conquers his fear and jumps. The tragic news is that Waaler notices Ellen outside the cabin. He quickly grabs her before she can escape and drags her inside to eliminate her too. Ellen begs for her life. "Please, I swear I won't tell anyone. Just let me live." But obviously, Waaler can't risk the entire police force discovering he's deeply involved in the illegal drug and weapons trade. He shoots her dead. To cover his tracks, he places the gun in Severin's hand to make it look like they got into a shootout and killed each other. Later that night, Harry rushes to the forest cabin after hearing the devastating news of Ellen's death. He stares at her lifeless body, unable to believe he lost his closest friend in an instant just because he wasn't there to answer her call. Waaler arrives, faking deep grief, saying, "I'm so sorry. I arrived too late to save her." 2 weeks pass. When Raquel visits Harry's apartment to check on him, she finds he has taken a massive step backward. He has relapsed and is drinking heavily again. Frustrated by his condition, she tells him, "We had an agreement. If you go back to drinking, we are done." Being in a vulnerable state where he can't handle criticism, Harry snaps back, "Whatever. You always choose to run away, and things get tough anyway." Deeply hurt by his words, she leaves him alone. Suddenly, Harry receives a call from the precinct chief. A woman has been murdered, and they need him at the crime scene immediately, but he must be completely sober. He jumps into the shower to sober up quickly. Arriving at the scene, he learns the victim's name is Camilla. He also finds Waaler there, but tries his best to ignore his presence and focus entirely on the case. When he examines the victim, he is shocked. She was shot in the head and left in the bathroom, her body fully exposed, and one of her fingers has been severed. Overwhelmed by anxiety, he quickly steps outside, takes a swig from a hidden flask he keeps for moments like this, and returns to the crime scene acting completely normal. He deduces that the killer severed her finger while she was still alive, given the massive amount of blood pooling in the bathroom. The killer also left the shower running so the police would find her quickly due to the flooding. Harry goes downstairs to interview the neighbors, Vibeke and her husband Anders, who reported the leak. He notices a highly toxic dynamic between the couple. The husband aggressively interrupts his wife, wanting to control the narrative. All of the husband's insinuations suggest Camilla lived a loose lifestyle and was involved with multiple men, implying one of her lovers might have killed her to teach her a lesson. Later, Harry visits Ingrid, the chief of the Criminal Investigation Division. He drops a bombshell. "I suspect Waaler murdered Ellen. Why else would he go to the forest cabin unless he wanted to silence Severin?" Ingrid handles the accusation cautiously, accusing a decorated, highly skilled detective like Waaler is incredibly dangerous without concrete proof. She tells Harry, "I will give you the space to investigate quietly. But on one condition: any information you find, you report to me first, and then we'll decide how to proceed." Having no other choice, Harry agrees. From that day on, he focuses entirely on tailing Waaler from a distance to find a single thread of evidence. But strangely, Waller's routine is suspiciously clean, almost as if he knows he's being followed. This plunges Harry into deeper depression because he can't find a single clue. The next morning, Harry wakes up to a call from the precinct chief, reminding him that today is Ellen's funeral. He scrambles to get ready, knowing he cannot miss this day. Meanwhile, Raquel is surprised when her son Oleg asks about Harry, noticing his prolonged absence. She is puzzled by this sudden affection after Oleg previously rejected him. She tries to deflect, saying Harry is just overwhelmed with work, but Oleg senses something is wrong. He takes a spare set of house keys and goes directly to the police station to find Harry himself. Unfortunately, Oleg runs right into Waaler. Knowing Oleg is Raquel's son, Waaler maliciously decides to ruin their relationship further. He tells Oleg, "Come with me, I'll take you to Harry." Waaler drives the boy straight to the local pub, showing him Harry drinking heavily in broad daylight, looking completely pathetic. Oleg is so disgusted by the sight that he turns around and leaves before even speaking to Harry. When Harry finally returns to his apartment, he finds the precinct chief waiting for him. The chief delivers the final blow. "I have bad news. I can't cover for your absences and behavior anymore. I had to submit your resignation letter. All you need to do is sign it." But Harry has reached such a severe state of apathy that he shows zero emotional reaction, simply saying, "Fine, whatever." Later that evening, Beate calls Harry with a massive breakthrough. They found the gun used to kill Camilla dumped in a trash can near her house. Shockingly, it's a rare CZ pistol. Not only that, but the medical examiner discovered Camilla's left eye was swollen because the killer had forced a tiny, red, star-shaped diamond under her eyelid. Despite this explosive new information sparking his detective curiosity, Harry restrains himself and tells Beate the case has been reassigned to Detective Waaler. Take this to him, but after hanging up, his curiosity consumes him. He remembers Kevin, the dealer in the car, who was asked about Severin. Harry tracks down Kevin's address and kicks his door in at dawn. "I'm not here for trouble. I just need one piece of information." He shows Kevin a picture of Waaler and asks, "Who is this?" implying he'll arrest Kevin on drug charges if he doesn't talk. Kevin explains, "All I know is he's a cop. His name, what he does there I have no idea." Harry takes this intel straight to Chief Ingrid, suggesting they open an internal affairs case and use Kevin's testimony as evidence. But strangely, the very next day, Kevin suddenly finds his courage. He boldly tells the police, "I won't testify to anything." "Do your worst." Ingrid immediately accuses Harry of coercing a witness to lie just to frame his colleague. She sternly warns Harry to stay away from the case and never bring this up again. Harry returns home internally shattered. He knows the case will be closed with Severin falsely blamed for Ellen's murder. Meanwhile, we see the killer who murdered Camilla. Dressed entirely in black, his face hidden, he records a cassette tape for the police, whispering, "Open your eyes carefully. The red star should guide you to the truth." Harry tries his best to pull himself together. He throws away every bottle of alcohol in his apartment, determined not to surrender until he uncovers the truth himself. Returning to the precinct, he learns the killer didn't just leave a red diamond. He also carved a 5-pointed star into the wooden bed frame. Harry realizes this isn't a one-off murder. The killer took her finger as a trophy and left a star as a countdown. This is a serial killer, and he will strike again. At the same time, Waaler receives a call from his corrupt higher-ups. If you're hooked on this intense mystery, don't forget to subscribe to Cinema Swift. We bring you the best thrillers, action breakdowns, and mind-bending recaps every week. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a plot twist. Now, back to the investigation. They tell him, since Severin is dead, you will take over the drug distribution network. As for the recent gang wars, the easiest solution is to ignite a massive war between the two biggest gangs, the Durs and the Cours. Once they tear each other apart, the police will realize the sheer importance of the weapons we smuggle into the city. To execute this plan, Waaler meets the leader of the Durs gang and hands him a bag filled with rare CZ pistols. During the conversation, Waaler casually drops a lethal hint. The leader of the rival Cours gang ordered the exact same weapons, but she won't receive her shipment until tomorrow morning. I'd say you have a window of time to eliminate her before she betrays you. The next day, news of Camilla's murder leaks to the press. Waaler intentionally manipulates the precinct chief, hinting that no one could have leaked this information except your favorite drunk detective. The chief is furious. He storms up to Harry and yells, "You are fired. What are you still doing here?" Harry plays it cool. "Well, I'm getting paid for the full month, so legally, I have to work until the end of the month." The chief agrees to let him stay, but strictly orders him to stay entirely away from Camilla's murder investigation. Conveniently, a new, low-stakes case comes in. A man reported his wife missing 2 hours ago. The chief assigns it to Harry to keep him busy. Arriving at the house, Harry is greeted by the husband, Willy. Willy seems highly anxious, explaining his wife, Lisbeth, went downstairs to buy groceries and hasn't returned for 2 hours, and her phone is off. Beate arrives with a canine unit to track Lisbeth's scent. Despite the husband acting genuinely distressed, Harry is deeply suspicious of him. Knowing the golden rule of missing wives, the husband is almost always involved. The tracking dog leads them to one of Lisbeth's shoes, tossed under a parked car in the street. Diade realizes Harry has completely ruled out the husband as a suspect and has already linked his disappearance to Camilla's murder. He suspects Lisbeth is the killer's second victim. Later that day, the Durs gang ambushes the rival gang's headquarters, sparking a massive shootout. Waaler watches the bloodbath from a safe distance. Once he confirms the mission is a success, he calls his boss to report the good news. Waaler then uses a voice changer to call a journalist named Maya. He tips her off that the two gangs annihilated each other, adding, "This is the perfect time for the police to arm themselves permanently to protect the city." Maya finds the logic sound but asks, "Who exactly are you? I can't publish a story based on an anonymous call." Waaler refuses to give more details and hangs up. He then visits Harry and makes a shocking proposition. "I know we hate each other, but I'm here on business. I have a job offer for you since you just got fired. Think about it, we learned their bitter enmity started 5 years ago, right after the car crash that killed Lars." Waaler holds Harry entirely responsible for the death of his best friend due to drunk driving. The next morning, Harry wakes up to the worst phone call of his life. He is officially and permanently terminated from the force. The department blames him for leaking sensitive case details. Because Lisbeth, the missing wife, happens to be a famous theater actress, her disappearance has caused a media frenzy. Harry is forced to turn in his badge and gun, effectively ending his police career. A few hours later, the precinct chief calls him. Harry ignores it and shoves his phone in his pocket, the reason for the urgent call. The police just received an envelope containing Lisbeth's severed finger, wearing a ring that hides the exact same red star diamond. Meanwhile, in the city of Prague, a man stands on his balcony waiting for his wife. When she arrives, he grabs his suitcase to travel. She looks visibly upset and asks, "Why do you refuse to tell me why you travel so much?" He simply replies, "I do this to protect our relationship," grabs his bag, and leaves. We notice his wife is wearing a necklace featuring the exact same red star diamond. Later that night, Waaler visits Harry, who ended up in a holding cell after getting into a bar fight. Waaler shows him the photo of Lisbeth's severed finger, explaining why the chief was desperately trying to call him. Taking advantage of the privacy, Waaler drops his mask and confesses everything. "I'll tell you the whole truth. I am the one who killed Severin. When I arrived at the cabin, I found he had already killed Ellen. I lost my mind. If he went to prison, he'd serve a year and walk free like nothing happened. So I killed him, and I staged the scene to look like they shot each other, because that's the justice he deserved." Harry realizes the job Waaler is offering is joining a vigilante death squad. Waaler frames it nobly. "We are just ordinary citizens fulfilling our duty to society. We do what the police are too weak to do. We eliminate anyone walking the wrong path. We are heavily funded by powerful people who pay us massive amounts for the good we do." He hits Harry's weak spot. "You are pushing 40. Everyone has abandoned you. You need a new path." He refuses to give Harry any specific names until Harry fully commits. As a sign of good faith, Waaler pulls strings to temporarily reinstate Harry to the force just until this serial killer case is solved. The next day, Harry visits Willy at the theater. Willy works as a stage director to officially inform him about his wife's severed finger in the mail. The news breaks Willy, and he breaks down crying hysterically. Walking back to the station, Harry spots Oleg sitting alone in a cafe. Surprised, he goes in and asks what he's doing there. Oleg explains, "I went to the station to see you, and when you weren't there, I figured you'd be drinking." Oleg begs Harry, "Even if my mom rejects you, at least try a little harder to fix things." Though hesitant, Harry uses the excuse of driving Oleg home to see Raquel. When he sees her, he asks, "Am I the problem in your life because of the nature of my job?" She bluntly replies, "Honestly, the problem is just you." Deeply hurt, he walks away. Meanwhile, at Mr. Haley's law firm, Barbara, the receptionist, is in the restroom filling a water pitcher. She is startled when a man walks into the women's restroom. It's no mistake, he pulls a gun and murders her. The killer's face is completely hidden from the audience. When Harry arrives at the crime scene, he overhears Waaler on the phone saying, "I sent 22 guns to the Durs gang and the two gangs wiped each other out, but their lieutenant is in the hospital." Harry waits for the call to end before stepping in so Waaler doesn't suspect he heard. Harry notes the killer arranged Barbara's body in a specific, begging posture. And of course, the crime scene features the signature red star diamond and a missing finger. Later that night, Waaler, dressed in a black suit and mask, attends a secret syndicate meeting. Everyone's face is covered to ensure complete anonymity and prevent threats. Waaler needs to eliminate the gang lieutenant recovering in the hospital. He meets the leader of the rival gang and manipulates her. "I heard they're planning to kill you. You should strike first and come out on top." She blindly believes him. The next day, the police psychologist briefs the task force, explaining that the killer is definitely a highly organized psychopath. His actions show he performs specific rituals. Psychopaths often look successful, clean-cut, and perfectly normal on the outside to hide their dark, twisted nature inside. This psychological profile clearly unnerves Waaler, who abruptly ends the meeting, claiming they have real police work to do instead of listening to psychiatric theories. Harry interrogates an employee who was present during Barbara's murder. The man states no strangers entered the building except a delivery courier who stayed for about 10 minutes. Harry catches the critical clue. Why would a courier stay for 10 minutes just to drop off a package? He orders the team to track down all couriers in that area at that specific time. While reviewing crime scene photos from Camilla's apartment, Harry spots a cassette tape near her bed. He suspects the killer left it. He personally goes to retrieve it. By chance, he runs into her neighbor, Anders, and asks if he knows the meaning of the star carved into her bed. Anders explains, it's a satanic pentagram. Pagans used to carve it above their beds to ward off nightmares, but its original, darkest meaning is death. Playing the tape, Harry confirms it's from the killer, full of cryptic riddles, the voice heavily distorted to avoid recognition. Harry calls his friend Peter, a retired cryptographer, hoping he can decode the riddles. Peter explains, I decoded math symbols, not complex riddles with multiple meanings. However, Peter offers a dangerous alternative. I have a pill that can help your subconscious connect the dots and analyze information on a much deeper level. Just make sure you don't take more than 2. Meanwhile, Waaler visits Beate in the lab, furious that she reports all new findings to Harry first. He questions if she's hiding anything else. She reveals they found a blood sample under Lisbeth's fingernail, and the blood type matches her husband, Willy. Harry personally interrogates Willy, but as usual, Willy breaks down crying, claiming it's just a coincidence. When Harry goes home, he decides to try the pills, but stubbornly takes 3 instead of the recommended 2. Within an hour, he enters a severe hallucinatory state, visualizing the case details piecing themselves together until he passes out. The next morning, he wakes up to find he carved a pentagram into his wall and wrote the number 5 on his bed. He rushes to the precinct, fully understanding the killer's pattern. He grabs a city map and plots the locations of the 3 murders, drawing lines between them to form a massive pentagram. He explains the killer's rules. A 5-pointed star means 5 female victims. With each murder, he takes a finger to count down. The murders happen exactly 3 weeks apart, meaning there are 2 weeks left. The victims' locations are predetermined by the points of the star on the map. Crucially, the building must have the number 5 in its address, and the victim must live on the 5th floor. Since he operates in order, the next victim will be targeted tomorrow in the student housing district of Kampen. To secure the area, police visit every building with the number 5 to warn the residents. By chance, they find an elderly woman living alone on the 5th floor because her son works in another city. Beate volunteers to stay with her for the day to ensure her safety. Back in Prague, we see the same man, Martin, preparing to leave his wife again. This time, she drops a bombshell. She's pregnant. His face goes pale. He says, if things have reached this point, you need to know why I travel every week. He opens his suitcase, and to her absolute horror, it contains a CZ pistol, the exact weapon used in all the murders along with the red star diamonds. All signs point to Martin being the serial killer. The next day, the entire police team monitors the student building via surveillance cameras. Inside, Beate chats with the elderly woman. The woman talks about her son, Martin, revealing she had him when she was 15, causing a massive family scandal, but they eventually reconnected. She mentions he imports goods from Eastern Europe and visits her every 5 days. She casually mentions, once, he gave me a piece of jewelry with a red gem. The moment Beate sees the red star diamond, She realizes Martin is the prime suspect. She immediately calls Harry to report this. Hearing this, Waaler panics visibly. He loses his composure and orders Harry to stay put, while he personally goes to the apartment to assess the situation. Harry finds this highly suspicious. If Waaler knows the killer is there, he should take a heavily armed SWAT team, not go alone. But Harry lets him go to see how he reacts. Waaler arrives at the apartment and angrily orders Beate to stay in the kitchen and away from the windows. Meanwhile, Harry notices a student dorm room with a star carved above the door. He leads a tactical team to raid it, but the room is completely empty. Before leaving, he spots a mummified hand swarming with flies. It's missing a finger, and a storage room key lies next to it. He realizes the body must be dumped in the storage unit. When he arrives, he finds the corpse wrapped tightly in a vacuum-sealed bag to hide the smell. Harry discovers this isn't a new murder. This was actually the first victim. The killer has already murdered 4 women, and the final target is next. Back at the elderly woman's apartment, Waaler waits by the door for Martin. As soon as Martin walks in, Waaler aims his gun and shouts, "Drop the weapon before I shoot." Martin is utterly confused. What weapon? I'm not holding anything. Waaler is clearly trying to manufacture a self-defense scenario to execute Martin and silence him. But his plan fails because Beate walks into the room right at that moment, asking, "What are you doing? You have both of your guns in your hands." Caught in the act, Waaler lies, claiming he just disarmed Martin. He handcuffs Martin and takes him to the station. The police believe the case is finally closed, holding a press conference to announce the arrest. Harry takes Raquel to watch Willy's play to support him and reconcile their relationship. Later that night, Harry visits Martin in his holding cell. Clearly, Harry knows the case is far from closed. He hands Martin a cup of water and says, "When I told Waaler your name, he panicked. You must be one of his smugglers, which is why he desperately wants to kill you and silence you. By the way, that water you just drank contained a lethal cyanide pill. In about 10 minutes, you will bleed from every pore until you die. I have the antidote in my pocket, but I won't give it to you unless you promise to help me expose Waaler and send him to prison." Terrified of dying, Martin begs for the antidote and agrees to everything. Once he secures Martin's cooperation, Harry smiles. "Relax, there was no poison. I just needed to scare you." Harry handcuffs him and sneaks him out of the precinct under the guise of transferring him to a more secure floor. When Waaler realizes Martin is missing, he sends an assassin to kill Harry. But our hero anticipated this and already moved Martin to a secret safe house. Martin tells Harry, "I have nothing to do with these murders. If you want my help taking down Waaler, you have to prove my innocence." He tells Harry the whole story from the beginning in a flashback to 1999. Martin moved to Prague in 1999 and met a man specializing in smuggling red star diamonds. Martin learned the trade, eventually expanding into smuggling jewelry and CZ pistols. He also manipulated women to extort money from them. Exactly 2 years ago, he stopped everything and only smuggled gems because it was safer, especially after meeting and marrying his wife, Petra. But eventually, he returned to smuggling CZ pistols for a high-paying client known as the Prince. The Prince is none other than Waaler. Martin's only leverage is a set of photos taken during their initial meetings. Last spring, Martin acquired a new Norwegian client who wanted both the red star diamonds and the pistols. Martin explains, "I traveled every week to drop the package at a public drop-off location. There was zero risk because no one in Oslo knew my face. Except for one woman I met by chance and spent a night with during her honeymoon." The massive reveal: Martin was merely the delivery man dropping off the murder weapons and diamonds for the real serial killer. But who is the mastermind? The next morning, Waaler is terrified his syndicate will be exposed. He suggests to his superiors, if Harry doesn't show up today, give him 24 hours to resolve this himself. If this leaks to the press, it will be a massive scandal, a famous detective helping a serial killer escape. Having secured permission, Waaler orders his team to track Harry's cell phone location. But Harry outsmarted him. He is carrying his friend's phone. Harry begs Beate to help him secretly. He urges Martin to retrieve the blackmail photos from his wife, Petra, as time is running out. With all doors closing, Waaler resorts to his final, most sinister option. He targets Raquel and her son, Oleg, knowing it's the only way to force Harry to surrender. Harry finally pieces the puzzle together and figures out who the real killer is. He goes to Willy's apartment. Strangely, he doesn't use the front door. He risks his life parkouring across the rooftops to enter through the balcony. Willy wakes up to find Harry standing in his bedroom. Shocked, he asks, "How did you get in here?" Harry casually replies, "Oh, didn't you know I came to arrest you?" Harry accuses Willy of being the serial killer. "How else would your blood end up under your wife's fingernails unless you were the one who murdered her?" Suddenly, Willy's expression shifts from panic to a chilling, sinister calmness. "Since you figured it out, I'll tell you the whole story. I knew you'd bring a tracking dog, so I kept her severed finger in my pocket to throw you off." Harry deduces, "You did all this because she cheated on you with Martin. While he was working in Prague, you were there on your honeymoon. When you found out, you staged this elaborate serial killer plot to get revenge." Willy elaborates, "If it was just a meaningless fling, I wouldn't have cared, but one day, I found 2 letters. One was from Martin, declaring his undying love and acknowledging her suffering in a loveless marriage for the sake of her career. The real tragedy, the second letter was written by her to him, but it was returned due to a wrong address. The worst part is that the affair happened for years ago, but her letter was written just a few months ago. She lived with me all those years, while her heart belonged to someone else." He pulls back the sheets, revealing a horrifying sight. His wife's corpse is sealed inside a massive plastic bag filled with embalming fluid. He preserved her body so she would stay with him forever. While Harry is paralyzed by the grotesque scene, Willy vanishes into thin air. Harry searches the bathroom and gets his second shock. The 5th and final victim is tied up and murdered. He hears the neighbors screaming outside and realizes Willy jumped off the balcony to commit suicide. Harry flees the apartment before the police arrive. He turns on his phone and is bombarded with frantic messages from Raquel Oleg has been kidnapped. Harry knows exactly who took him: Waaler. Harry calls Waaler and gives him the address of the safe house where he is hiding with Martin. Waaler arrives with Oleg, finding Harry and Martin sitting on the floor, handcuffed together. Waaler is furious. He has no time for mind games. He intends to execute them quietly, but noticing the security cameras in the hallway, he forces them into the elevator to avoid being filmed. Inside the confined space of the elevator, Harry makes his move. He pulls a concealed sharp tool from his pocket and stabs Waaler deep in the shoulder. Harry grabs Oleg and Martin, shoves them out of the elevator, and hits the close button. Waaler violently smashes the glass panel of the elevator door to shoot them, but Harry hits the button to move the elevator, trapping Waaler's arm in the mechanism. The immense pulling force completely severs Waaler's arm. By the time Harry forces the doors open to finish the fight, Waaler has already bled to death. The first thing Harry does is return Oleg safely to Raquel. Seeing how deeply her son has bonded with Harry, she tells him, "I'll wait for you to finish fixing your life, and then you can come back to us." Feeling a massive sense of relief and hope, Harry says goodbye and leaves. He contacts the journalist, Maya, handing over all the evidence and photos to expose Waaler's syndicate and broadcast the truth to the entire city. Later, Ingrid, the chief of the Criminal Investigation Division, sits with Harry. She apologizes for doubting him and officially asks him to return to the force, stating she needs his brilliant mind to dismantle the rest of Waaler's secret syndicate. Harry remains hesitant, still unsure of his future. As for the bank heist from 5 years ago, Harry finally solves it. He realizes the bank robber was actually the teller's husband. He orchestrated the entire elaborate heist just to murder his wife without getting caught. That's why her face dropped in pure terror the split second she recognized his voice before he shot her. Harry successfully arrests the husband. After surviving this chaotic, blood-soaked ordeal, Harry pulls his phone from his pocket. Out of habit, he calls his best friend Ellen to share his victory. When the call goes straight to voicemail, the reality finally sinks in. It is time to accept that she is truly gone, but the story isn't over. In a dark, undisclosed location, we see the leader of the secret vigilante syndicate wearing a mask, talking to an associate on the phone. "We need to lay low until this all blows over." The leader removes the mask, and we are hit with the ultimate plot twist. The mastermind behind the entire criminal syndicate is none other than Ingrid, the chief of the Criminal Investigation Division.